Okay, cool. So there's not too much on the agenda today, so we'll just go over what is on there. And me and Michael were talking before you jumped on. I think you actually did already contribute to it, though, like the case discussion. Was it you, or was it, maybe it was Steven, our other team member? There's like also a case discussion this week in addition to like our thing. I mean, it's up to you, but anyway. So I think that's probably why this agenda is like a little bit less, because there's also the discussion that we have to answer questions to. Okay, so the first question is, well, actually, I'm going to go over the case a little bit. So, I mean, I'm just going to do a quick summary. So just to summarize, it's like fast forward in the future, and he's talking with Oprah Winfrey about, and he's like admitting for the first time that he used like illegal substances in the races, and that he doesn't believe that anyone could do that and win the race without in that amount of time without taking the substances. And it kind of goes through the past and all the proof that was presented when they were when they took him to court and everything about it. And there's multiple witnesses of people who had been on the team or who had worked with the team, and they had pretty in detail information about the different types of things that his team were doing, and they were cheating the system. And in the past, like the drug tests weren't as good, and so they were able to kind of get away with certain things. But then over time, the drug tests got better, and they had all these different methods of getting away with like doing blood transfusions and stuff. And they would kind of, like, I know with the blood transfusion, they would test like the red blood cell count, and there's like a certain percentage or something that they can't go over. And so would test it out and do whatever they could to make it like right under the line where they'd still pass, but get away with it. And then they found out later on that they were like injecting different things, and there was a drug that wasn't able to be caught on a drug test yet. I forget what it was called, that they found out about and started using. But anyway, so and it was his whole team that was doing it, because the way that the team works is there's the leader, which would be him, and then there's all these different team members, I guess you'd call them, that assist the team leader and are riding bikes next to him in different stages. And so they all worked as a team to by using these like drug enhancements and other things to compete and be the best in the competition. So that's pretty much the summary. Do you guys have any other things to add just for the summary that I might have missed?
I think an important part was that when it talked about each of the team members and how they started their thing, and how like none of them really wanted to start like doping and stuff, but like Lance he was pushing them to dope every single time that they started. And after each of them confessed to like this, he then made it so that all their lives were just like ruined after that, because he would just like harass them constantly, being like, you guys are lying and all that kind of stuff, just showing the importance of like what kind of person he was outside of like the public eye. I think that was a really important part of the case.
Yeah, another thing too that I just remembered was the detail about, I think it was USI, I think is what the name was, and how he basically paid them off to not do anything about like his positive drug tests. So I don't know. I mean, I think because you made me think of that, because you were saying how like he made all these team members' lives, so bad. And I think it's because like so many people trusted him and like wanted to believe him. And so he was like, in light of, he was such like a positive public figure that people, you know, wanted to believe him and everything, which is why I think he was able to hurt those people that that did tell, like, go and come forward and try and I don't know what the right word is, but basically like tell everyone that what he was doing. But I don't know. Okay. Anyways, so the first question is, what is Armstrong's legacy?
Well, I think, well, like I was saying, when I thought of him, obviously he won like 7 times. He's sponsored by all these people. Like every single person had one of those yellow bracelets on for a couple years. Like it was pretty crazy how popular that became. And then, I mean, I just heard about it happening, and then I thought, oh, you know, he tested positive once for something, and a lot of athletes do that. So it's, you know, it's kind of whatever. Obviously it kind of tainted that legacy, but I don't know how to say this. Like, I don't think it was, maybe in my perception, it wasn't as bad as it should have been. His legacy wasn't tainted as bad as it should have been. Like, reading this, it's finding out that like all of his competitions, he did that, and that's the reason he pretty much won everything and stuff. I think it should, you know,
Yeah.
he still is, I don't know. He shouldn't be, I don't know, have any legacy at all other than being a cheater, I guess.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, like, if he never would have taken the drug enhancements, like, would he ever have won anything, or, you know, I don't know.
I feel that he might have won things because it even stated that his ability to be an endurance rider is it was higher than like the average person and like the average like athletic person as well. So he was already Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
Oh no, I was just they did talk about how like he won a ton of events when he was younger and stuff, and so he was talented.
So, I mean, like from a genetic standpoint, he was already like built to win, kind of like how Michael Phelps is genetically built to win. But then like they just succumb to like, oh, I need to be even better because of like all these things. So I feel like he would have won, but for him to win so many times in a row, he couldn't have done it without doping. So
okay. Okay, so Armstrong organized and led what was perhaps the most sophisticated and comprehensive cheating program in the history of sports. Who suffered from his cheating, and what were the costs?
It's a super vague question because you can think of that like pretty much anyone that knew of him kind of suffered from him. But I think the people that suffered the most were his teammates. Each of them slowly, one by one, decided that they didn't want to continue doing what he was doing and tried to rat him out and like were trying to be like whistleblowers and stuff. And then Armstrong would just come out and just like publicly humiliate all of his old teammates and just ruined all of their lives. And they suffered so much until he finally confessed that, oh yeah, I totally doped. Like, and he was like threatening people with lawsuits. He was actually suing people. There was just like a lot of things that like were making it hard for his teammates. So
yeah, I think that honestly, I think that, well, like you said, the people who suffered the most were his teammates. I think obviously he ended up suffering a lot because all of his, you know, winnings were in a way taken away. I mean, like, you still know him as like the winner of all those, but he's no longer titled with that. But I also think that every band suffered too, because to like find that out about, you know, someone that you look up to, I don't know. I just think that really is hard.
Yeah.
all the people that came in second place on all the races. So
Yeah,
that
definitely.
probably could have won, or Nike,
Well,
Live Strong, like all. I guess all the people that sponsored him too.
Yeah. I think the article did say though, like, I don't remember what the year range was. I don't know if it was the exact years that he won, but it did say like the top 3 winners in all of those at some point came out and said or either got caught like with using drug enhancements.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not just him that's doing it. It's like everyone, which is kind of unfortunate. But
that's true. Part of the case study said that his first victory, he won by like 7 whole minutes, which seems like a very short period of time. But like when you're like doing a cycling race like that, 7 minutes isn't very long at all. It's like an eternity from like one point to the other. And it's just like, oh, Michael Phelps won by like this many seconds. Oh, that's a really short period of time. But to the swimmers, that's forever. Like, and that's such a big distance to get away. And so I feel that like Armstrong with his first win, just promoted the culture of doping into the sport more than what it was already.
well, do you think so? Are you saying that all the other contestants knew that he was doing that, and that's why they started doing it?
I think it was referenced in the case study that like the other writers were like, "Oh, he's totally doping. There's no way he can like do these things," and so that they all started trying to beat him, and the only way that they could do that was by doping. And as like you could like as it was explained through the case study, each of the steps that they tried to like beat the drugs, he was always like one step ahead. He was like, "Oh, they're coming out with this way to beat my old drugs. I'll go to these new drugs." That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, what do you think the costs were then of this?
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Do you think there were any costs like other than just money?
I think like probably the reputation of the sport.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think to not just know that he was doing it, but a lot of other people involved in the sport really, really did hurt it. Okay. Okay. Do you think that the other writers who testified against Armstrong, were they too loyal to Armstrong or were they not loyal enough to Armstrong?
My personal opinion is that they were too loyal. I kind of want to like pull up the case study just so I can like reference who it was, because I just do that every time nowadays. Let's see, who was it? Oh no, I went too far. No, not him, because he already doped before we met him. Because like Tyler Hamilton, he said like he was like cycling since like 1994, and he didn't start like doping until 1997. And it was specifically provided by Dr. Pedro, whatever that last name is, because Armstrong was introducing him to those people.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Tyler, if he'd been like, oh, whoa, stop right now, like, and had been less loyal to Armstrong, he would have been able to been like, no, this is wrong. And like started reporting it. And then we wouldn't have had such a big scandal that we have today if like they had been like less loyal. My personal.
Yeah, I that's a difficult question for me because I don't remember which one of the team members that he was like one of his best friends. He was like one of the three, main people on the team. And then I don't know if he started getting better or what exactly happened, but like Armstrong started like distancing himself from him. And then he joined a different team. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering like, and then especially like all of them at the end came out and went against Armstrong and like told the public basically like what happened. But I'm wondering if you could say that was like not being loyal enough. Like I know that there's, ethics and whatever, but being loyal is, I think, sticking with someone like no matter what. And so do you think that when they came out to the public and, told everyone like what he had been doing with the team, do you think that was them showing like that they were not loyal enough to him, if that makes sense?
I would say that in a way, yes, because at that point in time they weren't loyal to him. But I feel that up until that point they were being too loyal, because what they were doing was like very highly illegal, and if they'd been less loyal from the get-go instead of like waiting until they were like so far entrenched into like the culture, then they would have been able to be like, hey, like, you can take all my blood samples. I've never doped before. They are doping. I can tell you how. I can like, and like basically like really wrecked his day. Then I don't know. At that point in time, when they blew the whistle, they weren't loyal, but yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if it started too as like well, let's do it, and everything's going good, but then I don't know, maybe they get guilty, and so I don't know. I guess maybe they were doing it for themselves at first as well because they wanted to win. I mean, like he obviously influenced it quite a bit, but maybe they were fine with it for a little while. And then they wanted out, and I don't know. That's just one thing I was thinking is maybe like it wasn't him like holding them down and and making them do it, Like obviously like the case study says he had a big influence on it and a lot of pressure, but at the end of the day they kind of did make their own decisions to
very true
to do it or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is a good chance like they were doing it for themselves, not necessarily for him. And if anything, honestly, like I feel like their motivation was like fear from him, not necessarily like loyalty, I don't know. I mean, it really can go both ways though. Okay. Okay, do either of you have a situation where you witnessed a leader, whether formal or informal, make a decision for others that made you uncomfortable? What was the situation and how did you feel about it? So,
if you have one, I'm going to wait to see if anybody else has one though.
I would just need a second just to think and see if I can think of one.
No problem. How about you, Garrett? Besides Wells Fargo being Wells Fargo.
Yeah, see, I'm trying to think of one. That doesn't have to do with that. See, like, it's kind of similar to this actually, but I don't know if it was like against the rules or not.
Uh,
But like in middle school on the football team, one of the coaches is a vet. This is gonna sound really weird, but he had like this cream that had steroids in it that they would put on horses and stuff to like, if I don't know if something happened to the horse, they'd put steroids on him.
yeah.
And like they would use it and they would rub it into like all of our legs and stuff before the games. And I never did it because it smelled terrible, and I
Yeah.
didn't think we needed it. Like we never really lost very many games, and I don't think we needed it at all. But like I don't know, that always just I always remember that as like something that made me super uncomfortable because it was like I don't even know if this is like legal type stuff, and it really was sketchy. And they always did it, and like a portion of the kids did and a portion didn't. So I don't know. It was like that peer pressure of our coach that was kind of questionable, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting.
It smelled so gross. I don't even know what it was, but I know it was like it had steroids in it though, and it was supposed to like affect your body to make you not get sore, have cramps, or anything like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Um. Michael, do you want to share your experience?
So I don't know if I think I've probably shared this before. Basically, my fiance was basically antagonized by her roommate. Her roommate is a Relief Society president in their ward.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, her roommate, the Relief Society president, had decided that Mariana, my fiance, was a sinner, even though we had done nothing wrong. And it was just like one day she just like would stop talking to us, and then she blew up, and she was just like, "I'm leaving the apartment." But then she was told she couldn't, and it was just like this huge thing that just like blew up like a bomb, and it was just nasty. But we had done nothing wrong at all. Like no breaking the law of chastity, no breaking any other commandment. It was just really weird that she just like decided that we were both sinners and stuff like that. And it just made me feel very uncomfortable to be in the apartment.
Yeah. Did she try and like influence other people to like act or like think the same towards you guys as she was?
Yeah, actually. So when she threatened to be like to move out of the house, the apartment, one of the other roommates decided to side with her, and she like came up to Mariana, my fiance, and it was just like, "Hey, we don't want Matilda to leave. You guys are horrible. You guys are sinners. We're gonna report you to the honor code." And like all this like crap that just started happening from another roommate just because the Relief Society president is like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave because I'm super uncomfortable because you guys are like sinning all the time." So
yeah, that'd be a tough situation, I think, to be in.
Worst part is we're still in the situation.
Well, you're getting married soon, right? So
Yes. It's very soon, so we're happy about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could think of an experience of my own. I mean, this is, kind of, I don't know. I'll just share it because I just thought of it. But like, so my boss a lot of times will, like, even today in like the huddles, I don't know if he just like makes things up, but he'll be like, "Oh yeah, Lauren agreed to do this," and like he never mentioned it to me before. And I'm like, I never said that, And I'm like, I don't know if he just remembers things wrong or what. But and it makes me kind of uncomfortable because then, I'm in a position like, and we're with a big group of people, and like a decision was made for me, and it wasn't like talked about first or anything. So I think like that's kind of what the question is kind of asking, like, does he need to make a decision for you or for someone else that makes you uncomfortable? I mean, that's like the only thing I can think of right now, honestly. Not the best example, but
That's good.
Yeah.
okay. Do either of you, this is another situation one, do either of you have a situation where you witnessed talented followers follow a leader into an uncomfortable or bad zone? What was the situation? What were the results? Did anyone object? And I think, honestly, your situation is real that you shared for the last one is good for this one, because it was a leader that like tried to influence the people to your team to do the cream, and some
who
people
knows what.
What? Did I get that
to
right?
do the to do the who knows what. I don't even know. Yeah, the
Yeah.
cream, whatever the heck it was, right?
Yeah, and there were people that did object. So, but do either of you have a different situation where a lot of like talented people followed a leader into a bad place, and some people might have objected, if anyone objected?
I really can't think of anything off of the top of my head. And I feel horrible for not being able to think of anything, but I
know, that's a difficult one. Like, I probably should have tried and like thought about this before we met, but I was like, oh, it'll be fine. But
I mean, I don't know. One that I can think of that's different is kind of on the mission. Like, there was a zone of missionaries that were like way out in the jungle in the middle of nowhere, and so the whole zone decided that they would, do whatever they wanted, because we would have to fly 6 hours in plane to go check on them. And so, they kind of did whatever they wanted, and there were some really good missionaries that got tied up in some really, just being really lazy and doing stupid stuff, and a couple of them got sent home, and I think that they probably wouldn't have if they wouldn't have been put in that group.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's one that kind of came to my mind.
Yeah. I mean, this is different, this situation that I'm about to share, because there's not like a leader, but I know for myself, like I know many people in high school that were very talented and smart people, and they got into situations like with drugs, which is like different, like recreational drugs, but and it just completely destroyed their life. Like so many people go down that path and they start hanging out with more bad people, and like they just seriously ruin their life. They don't go to college. They might drop out of high school. They, and then they're like a slave to it the rest of their life. And it's just so sad. And I know, and like people have passed away, and I don't know. So I think that it's not like necessarily a leader in that situation, but it's like a group of friends maybe, or someone in that group of friends that starts to influence the group of friends. And I know people that have been in those group of friends that have objected and left that group because they don't want to be involved in that. And obviously their lives like turned out a lot better than the people who stayed in the groups.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What basic principles guide your integrity? Are there times when there's a gray area, and how do you choose correctly? So first, what basic principles do you guys think guide your integrity?
I think the thing that guides my integrity, honestly, is how does my actions affect other people? And if my actions are going to negatively affect other people, my integrity is to not do those things. Is to be, a good person, and to make sure that I don't hurt other people around me.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like how I try and live my life, like the whole entire time. So yeah.
So Do you think that that comes above honesty?
Sometimes, yeah.
So do you when you say that, do you mean like actually telling a white lie or whatever, or do you mean just like not saying something?
So it depends on the situation, because there are times when I will tell white lies, just not to hurt people. But then there's other times I won't say anything to not hurt other people. But then if I see that like my action of lying or just not saying anything will hurt somebody more in the end, then it goes into me being perfectly honest and just being as blunt as I can. So
Yeah. I've been wondering about that lately. Like, I've always been a very honest person. Like, I can't lie. I really don't like lying. And I also don't like keeping things that like I feel like I shouldn't keep. And I just like I've been wondering, like, are there times when it's better to not share something or to, I don't know. Like, I've been wondering that lately. I don't know.
A little while ago, I was at my aunt's house, and I have this little redheaded cousin that's like just really funny, and he like never stops talking. But he came up to me and said something like, "My mom told me that if a girl asks me if she's pretty, you always tell her she's pretty, even if it's lying." And it was like it had like nothing to do with anything. Like I don't even know where the kid got that from, but well, obviously his mom, but like where he even pulled it out of. But when he said that, I kind of was thinking about that same thing of like, okay, well, if it's gonna, if you really don't think a girl's pretty and she asks you and you lie, like obviously I'm not gonna say, yeah, you're not pretty, and
Yeah.
it may not be the truth, but I do think that like there are times, I don't know, that's kind of a funny example, but I do think that there are definitely times that, maybe a little white lie or something like that can avoid you being rude or disrespectful or
Yeah.
making an uncomfortable situation. And obviously it's not a good thing to do, but I don't know, kind of like what you're saying, Michael, is like sometimes how you treat people does kind of come over honesty, I guess, in situations like that, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any other principles that you guys think define or guide your integrity?
not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I was.
Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of the one.
How about you, Lauren?
Yeah.
What are the principles guide your
Well, I honestly think that there's lots of principles that could guide your integrity. I think that honestly, like, okay, so I feel like my definition of integrity might be wrong, but I'm not sure. So I also think that things like hard work can define your integrity and like the effort that you put into things that you do, and also too like personal goals. Do you actually do what it takes to meet your personal goals, or do you just give up? I think that is something that really like can help define your integrity or guide your integrity. But okay, so the last question: how will you personally measure your life, and how will you measure your success?
So I'm going to take the cheap way out right now. I personally measure my life on how well I follow the commandments of God. And I do that mainly just like on a daily basis of how much I can feel the Spirit like throughout the day. If I look at my life and I can see that I'm not following the commandments of God, I'm like, oh, I'm obviously not being successful because I can't feel the Spirit. And then I then look at what I'm doing and I try and figure out like what I can do better to follow the commandments of God. And I feel like by following the commandments, I can be the best person that I can be on this earth. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. Making sure to be able to like feel the Spirit in my life is important because I am very like high stressed person. And so if when I don't feel the Spirit, like my life is so crazy and hectic and it's just not fun. But I think when I do like have that peaceful feeling with me, like it really helps me get me through my day. And another thing I wanted to add to my like measuring success for me is my relationships. So for me, like I think that my relationship with my husband and with my family is like one of the most important things to me. And so when those aren't in a good place, then I feel like my life's not very successful. But I don't know. What about you, Garrett?
he was offended.
Oh, he got
Yeah.
he'll come back. I think he got a phone call. Anyways, so yeah, I think relationships, and I also think that other things do measure your success. I think the church talks a lot about like how finances aren't, shouldn't be your number one motivation and this and that. But honestly, like it should be important. Like having savings and having a good financial, stability, like that should be important. Like being able to pay tithing, being able to donate if you can, I don't know. So and like not being in debt, obviously, I think is really important. So I think that can measure success too.
Yeah. And I'm just going to be like really cheating right now because I honestly feel that finances do fall under the commandments of God, because part of like multiplying and replenishing the earth, which is still a commandment to this day, you can't do that without like having savings, having a job that brings in money, paying your tithing is a commandment, fast offerings are a commandment. It's just that like I'm not talking about like the 10 commandments, but like following what the gospel teaches us, staying out of debt, having a savings, having like a food storage. Those are all like commandments that like we've been given by God. And as long as we like live those things and like do those kinds of things, I feel that will show our success in life. It's really weird. I can hear myself over.
Yeah, honestly, I totally agree. I think that every single like good thing in our life that we can do can go back to the commandments. Like I was thinking about health, like being healthy is very important to me, like exercising and eating good and, obviously like sticking to the word of wisdom, like not drinking and doing drugs and whatever. And I think that health should be really important to everyone, and the church does teach that. So I think that's true, that pretty much everything can go back to it. So I'm wondering if we should wait to see if he hops back on, or
I don't think.
No, you think we should be okay?
Yeah, we should be fine.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try and get the link out and everything, but anyways, well, do I stop it and then? Okay, I'll stop it now.